What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Game Informer Show, a weekly podcast covering the video game industry. I'm one of your hosts today, Alex Van Aken. Thank you for joining us every Thursday for a discussion about the latest gaming news, reviews, and exclusive reveals alongside Game Informer staff and special guests around the industry. Today, I'm joined by Marcus Stewart. How you doing, Marcus?
Good. I made a very exciting purchase recently. You
won't
believe it.
Really? Tell me.
For the first time ever in my life, I bought a pillow.
Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations. That's huge.
It is. It's nice. I've never thought that you could do such a thing. I've always just put up with what I had, but what I had has not been doing great for me and my neck.
You thought they stopped manufacturing pillows like 20 years ago.
Like VCR players.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things that as an adult, like transitioning from a child to an adult, the light bulb of I can purchase a thing that has always just been readily available. That particular light bulb didn't go off yet for pillows or bed stuff because I was like, oh, I just always have bedding.
Yeah,
you know?
Sure.
And I'm also a guy that is like very frugal / I can put up with, I'm low maintenance, let's just say.
Sure.
Like I don't really need nice stuff. But in this case, I was like, oh, this is hurting a lot. I could just not put up with this.
Yeah, it's not supposed to hurt.
A good pillow.
The thing about pillows, they are supposed to be comfortable.
That's
you're
what I've heard.
Like sleeping, I think.
Painless is usually.
So I actually looked up like high-rated pillows that weren't obscenely expensive and got like a nice one, and it felt really weird to spend money on something like that.
That's awesome.
Look at adult Marcus over here.
I know.
Yeah, you don't become a man till you buy a pillow. It really puts hair on your chest.
That other voice you're hearing is none other than our editor-in-chief, Matt Miller, who is also an adult. Joining us on the show. How you doing today, Matt?
And confirm.
I do try. I'm doing well. I have a pillow at home, so I'm feeling good about that. And I have other, things that adults need at home.
Of course.
I feel like, I have forks, plates.
I've recently purchased some things that aren't pillows, but I got some new guitar pedals within the last month. I got a Blue Sky Strymon. I had one of these guitar pedals a very long time ago. It was my favorite pedal, and I was a dummy and sold it. So I recently bought one again. And then for any other gearheads listening, I got the hologram chroma console, which is a really sleek looking multi-effects pedal. Very cool stuff.
The verdict, I'm sorry to say that the verdict just came in, Alex. That does not help with your adult
no
gear.
Okay.
It does not count points towards adult.
Okay.
So
all right.
Try again next week.
Yep, we'll do. This will be our recurring segment. What I bought last week. It'll be good.
And if it's inching you closer to adulthood or not.
Yeah, that should be an important metric, I guess. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, we've got a packed show today. This is a video game podcast. If it's your first time listening, welcome. We are Game Informer magazine, the thing you were reading when you were, 10 years old. Maybe you're still reading today. People come and go. Sometimes people are like, wait, Game Informer's still around? And we're like, yep, we are here. You can buy a print magazine subscription and get Game Informer delivered to your door like you used to. Head over to GameInformer.com. Or you can go to subscribe.gameinformer.com and pick up a magazine subscription for $19.91, and you will get our magazine delivered straight to your door 10 times a year. It's awesome. Our latest cover that we announced is the casting of Frank Stone, which is a collaboration between Supermassive Games and Behavior Interactive, the creators of Dead by Daylight. Coming together with the creators of Until Dawn, the Dark Pictures anthology, to make a new single-player game set within the Dead by Daylight universe. We've got videos up on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/GameInformer. Of course, we've got a awesome cover story you can go and read, especially if you sign up for a print magazine subscription. You'll get that in your hands very soon. Let's get started with the show today. We're going to be diving into Marvel Rivals. I know y'all talked about it a bit last week. I wasn't on, Miller wasn't on, so we've got a lot to say. I beat Thank Goodness You're Here. I'm excited to dive into that. Matt's been playing Dungeons of Hinterberg. We've got Forestrike on the agenda, Silent Hill 2, the old one, a Ranger, and maybe a little more. So it's going to be a good show. I will stop vamping. I will stop delaying. Let's get into it. Matt, you have been playing Marvel Rivals. I've been playing it quite a lot. I'm checking. Yeah. I'm pulling up my Steam right now to see my hour count. I got 14 hours in it, so I'm feeling pretty good.
For clarification, because I have not yet played it, but I would like to. It's not. Is it an open beta, or how do you play this game?
It's a closed beta.
Yeah,
it's a closed beta.
Okay, so I can't get into it basically.
Well, I think if you want it to play, I might have a connection. I know some people in the gaming industry, Marcus. But I think generally speaking, if you're out there in the world, I don't think it's a thing you can just hop into.
Yeah. They were doing Twitch drops and that kind of thing. There have been ways if you hit level 6 in the game, you can get invites to give away. But the thing with that is they're all first come first serve daily. And so I'm like level 12 or something, and I have yet to get an invite code through that means. So, yeah, it's kind of hard, honestly, to get in.
Yeah.
But we're going to be diving into the game itself for people who didn't get to play, talk all about it. But Miller, what are your early thoughts on it?
Well, I'm about in the same place you are. I bet I haven't looked at my hour count. I'm playing on PlayStation. But I'm betting I'm somewhere around like 12 hours, probably.
Okay, nice, yeah.
And it's surprised me. You know, I was really attracted when they did the announcement to their interesting art style that they were kind of playing around with. And the more I've seen of that, the more I like it. Now that I'm actually playing it, it's very, very stylized. And kind of doing its own thing with the Marvel heroes that most of us are very familiar with. But I wasn't sure what to expect out of the gameplay. And as I started, I think I'd be curious what your experience was. But I was like, oh, this is so pretty. But then I wasn't really digging it for the first like half an hour I was playing it. Maybe the first hour I was still kind of like on the fence. And then it kind of clicked, and thus, you know, another 11 hours after that, I'm still like coming back for more matches. There's no doubt that it draws heavily and unabashedly from the Overwatch formula.
Yeah.
And at times is even directly like, did you like this character in Overwatch? We've got you covered. Right. I mean, like, for instance, there's one of the characters who goes around the matches skating and healing people.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, it's that close of a thing. There's another character who's a kind of a cute, spunky girl who hops in a mech and, you know, wrecks people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, there's definitely places where they're like, they're trying to get somebody who enjoyed Overwatch to come and play it, even down to that. You like this kind of character. You like this specific character in Overwatch. Well, we've got a Marvel character that's like that. Nonetheless, it does a lot of cool things, you know, like, and it does it well. That with this kind of a hero shooter, having interesting, balanced characters is kind of the key to success. And the game has it, you know, like I said, you start those first couple of matches and everybody's just immediately killing you, of course, because you don't know what you're doing. And then you start to gradually like, oh, okay, I've wrapped my head around this character, and maybe I'll go try this other guy. And you try that one, you kind of start to get that vibe. And eventually you're getting into that really fun loop.
Yeah.
Of constantly trying new characters, going back to ones that you like, expanding your repertoire of what you can be successful with. I gotta say, I've been having a pretty good time.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. So I played this at Summer Game Fest for probably 45 minutes, and wasn't blown away. It was kind of I think I talked about on the GI show that week that I just felt like it was missing something, and it felt very derivative of Overwatch, which I still 100% agree with that second fact. I think it is very derivative of Overwatch, like you said, Miller. Whether that's something that's a little more, I think they kind of wear it on their sleeve.
I mean, even the font reminds me of Overwatch's.
Yeah, sure, yeah. I mean, literally, like I think almost every character in Overwatch has an ability in this game, in some way, shape, or form. I think where it gets interesting is, you know, some of the characters, those abilities in this game might be mixed and mashed up in interesting ways, you know. I'm trying to think of a specific example, but like Groot, for instance, he's a tank in the game, and he can, you know, he has Zarya's ultimate where Zarya, you know, throws in her graviton surge, this big ball, and it sucks people in. Groot does that with a ball of roots. But Groot also has some other interesting things about him, like characters can ride on his back for damage reduction. Certain characters like Rocket Raccoon, and there's a new character they've introduced called the Land Shark. I don't remember his actual name.
He is a Marvel character. Jeff the Land Shark is from, I think, West Coast Avengers, which is always quite kind of a jokey Avengers team a little bit.
By the way, Jeff the Land Shark. Jeff the Land Shark is awesome. I love playing that character. He's really strong healer. But so those two characters can ride on Groot for damage reduction. Groot can also like summon cover, and if he's close to the cover, depending on the type of cover he summons, he can, like, if people get close to like the root walls, the roots will attack them. Like there's like each character almost has like, there's one Overwatch element and there's something new, and it kind of makes it still feel, it's familiar, but it feels fresh. And I think those team ups, that they're officially called team ups in the game, the Groot and Rocket Raccoon thing. There's other characters like Luna Snow can combine with Namor, who is from Aquaman, and Namor can summon
wait. Aquaman.
Huh?
I want to save you the wrath of the comic book fans.
I don't know Namor.
Namor, he's basically the Aquaman of
the Marvel universe.
Even
did I just step on a rake?
Yeah, he was the villain.
Yeah.
It's easy to mix up. They're similar.
They're both Aquaman, but there's only one.
Oh, I'm a dummy. Yeah, I'm a dummy. Yeah, I'm a dummy. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, wow, I really did just step on a rake. I apologize. I haven't had any coffee today, DC fans, Marvel fans, I'm so sorry. Namor is like Aquaman, and can summon, oh god, that's like the easiest mistake to make.
Yo, Matt, technically, is Aquaman like Namor? Doesn't Namor predate Aquaman?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, there you go. Oh god, I'm gonna get messages. So yeah, Namor can place down octopi, and they are kind of like sentries and stuff, but if Luna Snow's on the team, Namor can activate like an ice version of his abilities, and there's a lot of really cool synergies there that I think make the game, I mean, it gives it more depth. Number one, should I run this character that I really like that doesn't have any synergies with my current team? I really like the Punisher, but I don't have a Rocket Raccoon on my team that will help me with ammo and such. Or should I go and play, should I play Iron Man to buff up, to team up with Hulk on our team and get, give the Hulk extra health, that kind of stuff. A lot of cool team ups and synergies there that it's like, okay, is it worth playing into those synergies, or in this moment does it feel like I should break away from that and do something different to try to shake up the game?
That seems like the coolest thing about the game as someone has not played it, because to me that seems like, as a comic book fan, it almost rewards that fandom. I don't know how they communicate what synergies exist. Like, I don't know if the game just tells you these characters go together, or if it's something you have to find out on your own.
No, it's like on the screen select. There are right above the hero roster, there's like these series of little squares, and if you hover over them, hover over the icon, it'll tell you, okay, here's who's been picked on your team. If you want to match with them and synergize with them, you can pick these characters, and here are the buffs you'll get.
Okay.
And I believe those are seasonal. They will rotate out, I believe.
Oh, really?
I mean, Marcus, you're hitting on, I think, one of the things that the game really has going for it. through its license with Marvel is that there are very few pop culture characters that are more ubiquitous and familiar at this point than Marvel superheroes and Marvel villains, and they lean into that to help you understand the kind of character you're going to play and what they might be able to do, right? Like, for instance, Alex brought up Iron Man, right? If you think about Iron Man and what he does in comics or in the movies or anything like that, it would feel weird if you couldn't float and fly around and shoot out beams and missiles as Iron Man. Like, that's a piece of information that if you have even a little bit of awareness of these characters, you already know about Iron Man. And you can be like, oh, I like that idea. I like that fantasy. I'm going to go do that. A lot of other non-licensed hero shooters have to establish that understanding through visual iconography and, just playing the game. And I think you kind of come in already with a certain level of understanding of what you can do with these characters, at least with some of them, right? And I think that helps a lot. The team ups are also very logical, right? Like, and they make sense if you know the characters. If you put Star-Lord on your team and Mantis on your team, they're both Guardians of the Galaxy, and they have a thing that happens with them. And I think that's fun to play with. There's a weird aspect of the gameplay that I think is kind of key to what makes the game fun, and that is that instead of having a character, there's lots of multiplayer shooters where you choose a class, you choose a character, and that's like the thing you're going to be for that match. This does not do that. You select your character, and there can only be one character on your team of that guy, right? But you can change your character every time you respawn, and I have many times, as I'm sure you have too, Alex, seen a match completely turn around.
Oh, yeah.
Because, Team A is just rolling over Team B. And then Team B kind of like, okay, these two people just changed characters. And all of a sudden, it completely flips the dynamic. And because there's 6 characters on the field for each team, things can change quite fast, right? Like, and you suddenly, the payload's moving down the road and nothing's stopping it, and then it just stops. And you realize it stopped because somebody switched over from Punisher to Doctor Strange. And that was the thing. Like, having Doctor Strange on the field and having him being able to use his magic to block attacks and the other people get behind him and all that kind of stuff was the thing that really made the difference. And so that tactical layer is very appealing and forces you to really pay attention to the flow of a given match. Yeah. And be reactive to it.
Yeah. I want to get into a little bit, Matt. We brought this up before recording. You've also been playing Concord, which I know we've talked about on the show previously a bit. But I want to hear your thoughts on, as somebody who hasn't been on the show since these betas have come out, what you think between the two. Because you've got Marvel Rivals over here, free to play, very derivative of Overwatch, but it's fun, right? Then you've got the, I believe, $40 price point of Concord, doing something a bit different, still kind of a hero shooter, but more in line with how Call of Duty feels a bit. What are your thoughts between those two games? And yeah,
I mean, it's worth sharing a little bit of background for me that I was an Overwatch guy. I played a good bit of Overwatch and then fell off of it. I don't play it as much anymore. Yeah. But I am drawn to the idea of that kind of interesting, different gameplay styles represented by characters, having a little bit of a fictional backdrop that helps to bring some life to the game world. Yeah. All that stuff works for me, right? I think for me, moving away from Overwatch, unlike some people who just started to hate it or something like that, I don't hate Overwatch. I just was oh, I've had enough of that. I don't need to really be constantly playing it the way that I was. So both Concord and Marvel Rivals appeal to me inherently. And I bet that I'm not alone in that camp, right? Like, I bet there's a lot of other people out there who are in that same space of like, yeah, I remember I played a lot of Overwatch back in the day, and then I just don't anymore. But I wouldn't mind playing another thing kind of like that.
Yeah.
Both these games are trying to do that. Concord appeals I liked Concord 2 a lot, but for different reasons. One of them is that the gunplay and the actual ability usage and stuff like that is really tightly tuned in Concord.
Yeah.
I think it feels at times a lot like Destiny.
Yeah.
Destiny's my personal favorite shooter. I play a lot of Destiny. And just the feel of movement and jumping and shooting definitely draws on some of the things that I like about the Destiny universe. And I think Marvel Rivals, it's good, but it's not quite there in terms of like,
it feels
it's
a little loose.
It is loose, right? Like it's maybe in a way that would be inviting to more casual players. Maybe some of that's a little bit purposeful. You don't need to be like a shooter expert to play Marvel Rivals by any stretch, because there's a lot of classes that are just like, I'm going to run up and punch things, right? Or I'm going to be Spider-Man and swing through the level. And that's kind of like the skill set that you're going for. Concord is trying really hard to do this kind of interesting thing of like establishing a fictional universe and building it out gradually. At least it seems like they are, through their seasons and through like moments that happen for the characters. And I'm interested in that. I think that's a challenging thing to do, right? It's a challenging thing to get off the ground and get somebody interested in a fictional universe when there isn't really a core story that you first had them play through, right? Like Overwatch did it a little bit, right? Like with their cinematics and things like that. I think there's lots of people who are like, they like those characters and they like that universe, but it's hard to do. Marvel Rivals, I mean, like it or hate it, the reality is that like, Marvel, who those characters are, who Spider-Man is, right? Like, that he's going to make some silly quips and he's going to swing around. He's going to be kind of an agile guy who punches and kicks and then gets out of danger. So there's like a built-in vernacular already. Yeah. And Concord can't lean on that. It gives Marvel, I think Marvel's likely to be a later release in final release, right? Like Concord's pretty imminent, isn't it?
Yeah, I want to say August.
It's it's like maybe 2 weeks away at most.
I'm looking it up. It's August 23rd.
Yeah, so that one you'd be able to check out. Anybody could check out quite soon. Marvel is further out, but I don't know. I think they're both really good games so far. I'm drawn to both of them. I think Marvel I was more suspicious of because of the free to play stuff, and I think there's still potential there. We've in the closed beta, what we've seen does not reveal very much about monetization approaches, and there's the potential for that kind of thing to be really really break an otherwise great game. But we'll see. At least from the start here, I like the characters, I like the art style, I like the constant change up of gameplay styles. So it's been good. As you've been talking, I was kind of thinking what Marvel Rivals kind of reminds me of Marvel Rivals to Overwatch, or even just like Marvel Rivals to the team shooter genre. Reminds me of Pokemon Unite in a lot of ways, and its relation to things like Dota and League of Legends, right? More simplified in some ways, but it's like there's just like a novelty in seeing, your favorite pop culture characters duke it out.
It's like a a really good carrot on a stick to get you to try a genre that you might not have otherwise been interested in. Because I remember when Pokemon Unite came out, like I am not a MOBA guy, and I'm not even a big Pokemon guy, but I do have like an affection that stems from when I was into it from childhood, where even I was like, maybe this is the MOBA I try just because of the license tied to it.
Sure.
Yeah, and Pokemon Unite has continued to have a pretty strong player base from what I know. And people continually go back when they release, new characters, and it's cool because they'll release new characters that I am like, what, you released that character, that Pokemon, but it's novel, yeah, and to be fair, Marvel Rivals seems to be doing a little bit of the same with like Jeff the Land Shark. That's not a character that I think if you had asked me, is there a cartoonish shark, like a funny comedic shark in the Marvel universe, I probably would have been like, that sounds familiar. Was that in like one of the containers and Guardians of the Galaxy or something?
One of the container.
Yeah.
And listen, they had to respond to Suicide Squad earlier this year. They're like, oh, you have King Shark? Well, we've got Jeff the Land Shark.
Yeah. Shots fired. But I have enjoyed, I think we've talked a lot about like the mechanics and the systems and all that, but like I want to know your favorite characters, because for me, my rotation currently, as for tanks, I play a lot of Magneto. On DPS, I play a lot of Punisher, and Iron Man. I'll sometimes play Scarlet Witch, and then on support, and these aren't like the official, I forget their actual names for their classes, but on support I've been playing Jeff the Land Shark, and before that I played a decent amount of Loki. But Matt, what about you? I want to know who you gravitate to.
Yeah, it's interesting when you play a game like this. You start to see like what are the characters who are always on a team.
Yeah.
And that usually suggests to me like there's a nerf incoming.
Yeah.
Right. Like somebody's getting hit soon. I think Venom is getting hit at some point. Venom is really like, it seems to be show up on every team.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because I haven't had that much success with him, but clearly other people do. He shows up as MVP a lot.
I like him as like an off tank.
Yeah. People do well with Venom, I would say. He seems to be at least in this closed beta, has been a strong contender for favorites. For me, I've played, I like Mantis a lot.
Yeah.
I like that maybe more so than other games like this, whether Overwatch or other things, that you can really be a pretty successful damage dealer while healing with most of these support roles, which is fun. Mantis is a character who I've like knocked out a lot of enemy guys with, but I also she's really fun to be constantly juggling out healing and buffs with. I like Doctor Strange a good bit. He's got this big kind of Reinhardt like shield that he puts out in front.
I like his ultimate a lot, where he like briefly sucks the souls out of people, and like if you hit their souls, and it'll do damage to their bodies.
Yeah, it's cool.
Shang Tsung stuff.
Yeah, no doubt. I played Star-Lord. Actually has started to emerge as an interesting and fun character for me. He's got his element guns kind of hit really hard, but then you got to reload constantly, right? So you get like a brief burst of high damage when you shoot, and then you got to like reload. But one of the ways you reload is by dodging, and dodge recharges pretty quick. So it encourages this style of play where you're constantly like popping in and out of cover, taking some pot shots and then leaping back into cover. And then you also have a kind of a jetpack thing that lets you occasionally get up into the air a little bit and fly. So he's been fun. I think those have been maybe my favorites. I've tried a lot of them. I like you. I like Magneto. He's pretty neat. I've had some success with Hulk.
I have not. I've had.
He's a hard one to get a handle on because he's got like 3 forms.
Yeah,
right?
I stay away from Hulk. I also find when I'm Hulk, I get focused really hard in ways that I don't necessarily in other characters.
Part of the tactical dynamic of this game is there's a lot of things that are telegraphed through visuals and sound.
Yeah.
That if one of the ways you get good at the game is as soon as you start hearing Scarlet Witch shout pure chaos, you get the heck out of there.
Yeah.
Right? Because
is that her high noon?
It's her diva ult.
Effectively. And she wrecks everything that is nearby to her at that moment. So if you hear it really loud in your audio, you're like, oh, I'm too close to her right now. I need to get away or else I'm going to have a respawn. So there's that interesting dynamic where you're really wanting to kind of pay attention to the audio and watch what's happening around you. And you start to learn the cues of like, oh, Punisher just put up a turret, or Storm is about to throw down a tornado that's going to wreck everybody. So you got to kind of like watch for those cues.
Get off the payload.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, cool.
So, I don't know. I think it's people should keep an eye on it. Don't dismiss it as like, oh, it's another free to play, nonsense thing. It's good.
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like it. I think I heard that it's the betas have done very well for them in terms of the player count for it.
Yeah.
This game is probably going to make $1 billion, right? Because
I bet it's going to do pretty well.
Yeah, the license, and even just like, we don't know when it's coming out for realsies, but for this beta to be active coming out of San Diego Comic-Con, where at least maybe the way I'm feeling, it feels like the excitement around Marvel coming out of that is higher than it's been in a while, with RDJ making his way back to the MCU, all that good stuff. That it just feels like this is a great time for something like this to be out there and on the way.
Yeah.
So I think they're gonna do just fine.
I think so. I have been playing a smaller game called Thank Goodness You're Here. I've beat the game. I think it's out. It is out August 1st. If you want to play it as well, it's from a developer called Cole Supper. And I believe it's being published by Panic. Let me double check while I talk. Thank goodness you're here. It's a comedy adventure game, and it looks like a cartoon. That's like the easiest way to. I mean, it looks like you're watching, some sort of Family Guy or American Dad sort of thing. A little more, actually, more of like a Cal Arts. I would say Cal Arts art style, more of a Cartoon Network look. Took me about 3 hours to beat it in 2 sittings. And you are, you're in a northern English town, called Barnsworth. And this game is full of British humor. One of the main characters is voiced by Matt Berry from What We Do in the Shadows. I think he's in the IT Crowd. If you don't know, I know some people I've been talking to this game about. They're like, I don't know who Matt Berry is. And I'm like, if you've seen the clips of the vampire who says Arizona, that's Matt Berry. Sometimes that triggers a memory for people. Sometimes it doesn't. But he's hilarious, and he plays a gardener in this game. And honestly, the format kind of reminds me a bit of Untitled Goose Game a little bit. It's not a stealth game like Untitled Goose Game is, but in the way that you move throughout these different parts of a town and complete quests. And in this you get there and everybody needs help. Everything's falling apart in this town. Things are always going awry, and you are helping this town do errands. And the whole reason you're here is I believe you're there to get a job or something with the mayor's office. And essentially at the start of the game, the mayor's busy, so you just go and get to know the townspeople. And it's this really hilarious adventure game. I think it's probably the funniest game I've played. I love British humor. I love dry humor, and just this leans more into the absurd rather than necessarily dryness. But it's so good. I haven't written a review yet. I think I'm going to. I was talking to Brian about it. but I would be giving this a very, very high score. I think it's incredible. It's a very hard game to talk about because a lot of it is walking through this town. You backtrack quite a lot, which honestly annoyed me at first, but then I realized they kind of force you to backtrack, and this backtracking kind of sets up jokes and various punchlines as you get to go through these similar situations through new lenses. And I should say a lot of what you're doing in this game, the only way that you interact with people is by slapping things. You walk up to somebody, you want to talk to them, you have to slap them. And sometimes it's, a larger person stuck in a gutter and you're slapping their butt to talk to them. Other times, you're also playing like this very tiny character compared to the size of everyone around you. And so the environments are always surprising. It reminds me of almost South Park a little bit, the South Park games, Stick of Truth, and less so in like the RPG mechanics, because in this game you're playing like a variety of mini games. Although it all feels seamless, and it's a very hard game to talk about. I'm sorry, I'm realizing this.
Just for the Goose Game comparison, is it completing a series of somewhat cryptic tasks in like creative ways?
Yes, but there is no checklist like there is in Goose Game. You're typically talking to people. They are giving you hints as to what their problems are, and then you're going to go and either get them that item from another character, but that character needs you to do a favor before they give you that item. Very, very traditional adventure game setup. And so you're pretty much, I would say the characters in the game really kind of lock you into areas, and so it's pretty hard to get lost. There's a lot of roadblocks in place so that you stay on task, right? And then once you complete that task, something will a game event will happen, a cutscene will play, and it's all very seamless because it's all in this cartoon art style. So, but it's really hilarious. I think I was sitting there thinking, I was like, what other games have made me laugh, like cry laugh?
Cry laugh. Okay.
Cry laugh. Yeah.
Ugly laugh.
Ugly laugh. And it might just be this one, honestly. It's really, really good. I'm really impressed by it. If you're looking for like just like a game as like a palate cleanser, or if anything I've said, kind of resonates with you, it's really hilarious. And I think if you look up screenshots of it, you'll see it just like really catches your eye, man. It's so good. And a lot of it just feels like you're watching a show, honestly.
Yeah. I'm happy to hear you use that term palate cleanser. It's a thing that increasingly I've found myself really recommending to people as a way of like how to think about enjoying games the most. I think one of the things I hear the most from people is people who get like burnt out because they're at this point, they're playing one game all the time that they love, and yet it becomes this like love-hate relationship, whether it's Call of Duty or Destiny or League or whatever, because you're like, it's the only thing you're ever doing, and you feel like, well, all my friends are here and I'm definitely going to keep playing. I don't want to leave it, and yet sometimes I sit here and I'm playing and I'm just like hate myself for playing it. And like if you're like in that camp, I'm telling you, man, the solution to that is like just let yourself play some palate cleanser games, like what Alex is describing. Something that's like 3 to 8 hours, right? That you can take a weekend off from your raiding with your buddies and go play something like this. And then you come back, and I promise you, you will enjoy your gaming hobby more.
Absolutely. And I'm looking at my Steam, I beat this in 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And I might go back and try to 100% it. There's a couple of ways to do that. And I think it's $16.99. At least on Switch, it's $16.99. So $15, 2.5 hours, 3 hours. You probably get probably squeeze
night at
4
the
or 5.
movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I might pick this up because I have a long flight coming up next week.
It is one of my favorite games I've played this year, for sure. I feel
Nice. Cool.
it's unique. It's novel. It's hilarious, man. I love it. And I think it'll probably, the way the year is currently going, I definitely foresee it being on my top 10 list somewhere at the end of the year.
Awesome.
But Alex, is it a puzzle game?
Dude, it's such a weird game, man. Puzzle game. I mean, I guess a puzzle game in the sense that it really does feel more adventure game rather than like, there are puzzle elements to an adventure game. Like there's got to be something here that I need to go and talk to a guy. But I'm not sitting there and solving puzzles, right?
Sure. So Lorelei and the laser eyes is safe. You can still hold on.
Yeah.
To
That's what you're bringing up. Yeah. Yeah. That beef from a few weeks ago.
Yes,
Where you guys
night.
Duped me on our mid-year game of the year.
I don't think there was any. I think you misunderstood.
No, I think you misled me. But no, this man, adventure game. I think like a 2D platformer in some ways. It's hand drawn, doing a lot of exploration. It's really good. Again, it's called Thank Goodness You're Here. I love it. You got to play it, man. Both of y'all on this call, you got to play it.
I will. I want to.
It's on Steam. It's on Switch. And it might be elsewhere. Let me double check. But thankgoodness.game is the website I'm looking right now. Looks like Steam and Switch. Coming August 1st to, here we go. Mac, PC, PlayStation 4 and 5, and Switch. There you go. So really cool game. Loved it a lot. Go play it. But that kind of wraps up like what I've been playing. Matt, I want to go back to you. You've been checking out Dungeons of Hinterberg, which looks really cool.
Yeah, it's a neat game. I'm hoping to. This is another one that I think you'll see a review from us from Game Informer here pretty soon. We had a busy. Don't need to tell either of you guys a busy month the last few weeks, kind of getting through some other stuff. So I'm arriving at it late. The game's already out. You guys can go play it if it sounds appealing. But what I've seen of it so far is really cool. It's kind of an action RPG with an unusual premise. You are this woman who is kind of sick of their life in the big city, being an attorney. And you decide there's these, in this weird world, it's kind of like, what if in the real world, all of a sudden there were places where monsters and dungeons just appeared in certain parts of the world, and people decided to go on vacation to go and like be adventurers. And that's what she does. She goes to this little town in the Alps to get away from the big city that is known to have this array of dungeons that you can go explore.
They're like the new escape rooms, dungeons. Yeah,
it's kind of like that. I mean, there's a vibe a little bit like if it was the real world, it was like you heard there's some great skiing at this town, and you just got to get out of town, and I'm going to go I'm going to go learn how to ski in this amazing skiing town in the Alps. Except it's not skiing, it's monsters and dungeons. And the game is split up. It has a quality that reminds me a little bit, for anybody who played it last year, of Dave the Diver.
Oh, okay.
Where you're sort of splitting your time between like these excursions where you go out into particular locations and track down and find entrances to dungeons, and you go in and there's puzzles that you solve and monsters that you fight and boss fights and all that kind of classic, what you think of as a dungeon, right? And then you go back to town and it's like a relationship, friendship sim kind of
life
vibe,
sim kind of stuff.
A little bit, right? I mean, not very, very light in that, but you're going around the town and you're meeting people, you're choosing who you spend time with. And by spending time with them, you get certain bonuses. You know, if I hang out with this guy, they're gonna, I don't know, make it so that I can open up locked chests that I find out in the field.
Okay.
Because
Kind of like a light Persona.
Yeah, there's a little bit of nod to Personas there. I wouldn't want to extend that comparison too far because it's definitely not like a turn-based RPG with a party or anything like that.
What do you think it's like similar to like a Cult of the Lamb situation? Did you play that?
I didn't play. I played a little bit of that game, but
I think that was more management sim.
Okay.
Yeah,
Like dungeon crawling.
That was my sense
Okay.
too. This is more like you're wandering around town and just like there's a day-night cycle that you're going through, and so things happen in the town. So like pretty early on in the game, there's a local festival that you go to, and you see them reveal a new statue in the town square, and all the people are sort of like, that's an ugly statue, and like that's the drama of the game, right? It's like very kind of low, like purposefully low stakes in certain moments. About like, oh, well, this person got in an argument with this other person, and we're going to spend a bunch of time talking about that. Or like dealing with the fact that there's some local kids who don't like that their town has become a tourist destination, right? And they don't really like you initially because you're just one of these tourists who's coming through and is going to leave 2 days later and not contribute anything to the town.
Yeah.
So there's those kinds of conversations, and then the next day you get up in the morning and you're like, I guess I'll go up on the mountain and go into this weird dungeon. Yeah. The action is pretty solid, right? Like you gradually upgrade your weapons and your armor and things like that to have different abilities, and you gain access to unique magic abilities that are different between the different zones that you go to explore. There's like I want to say there's 3 or 4 main zones that you go to, each of which have several different dungeons, and each of those zones has their own magic abilities, and that mechanically results in unique puzzle solving things that you've got to do, right? So if in one place you can I don't know, create a tornado that you can jump into to fly over something, right? Okay, yeah. That might be one of your magic powers. So you have that in one area, but when you go to the other area, you don't have that anymore, and you have a different set of a couple of magical powers. So it keeps it fresh in that way. And I would say that keeping it fresh, I have it in my notes. It's like, man, maybe it's my review headline. That's really what the game does well, is that because there's this day-night cycle, there's things changing in the town, there's things changing, like this mountain wasn't open for exploration before, and now it is, and now you can go there. So as time passes through the game, you're constantly feeling like there's new things happening and new things opening up. And so even though nothing ends up being incredibly deep, like I wouldn't describe the combat as super deep or complex or anything, but it is fun. And part of that is because I got this new thing, right? Oh, now I've got another new thing. And oh, now back at town, I've got this new friend. I'm going to talk with them. And now I've got this new place to go explore. And it keeps that flow of new experiences coming in a way that is neat. So I think it's cool. I think if you want a kind of a quirky change of pace experience, but that's still rooted in kind of classic action role-playing game ideas, the kind of thing that you know, like Zelda dungeons or Kingdom Hearts style combat a little bit. Maybe one of the games that came to mind as I played through it. I think it's one that people might want to at least investigate and check out. Awesome. Yeah, it's I'm eager to check it out. The art just definitely grabs you when looking at it on the Steam page. Yeah, it's got kind of a cell shaded. Yeah. It's cool. Well, awesome. That's Dungeons of Hinterberg. Marcus, let's go over to you. You've been pretty quiet today. Why haven't you haven't been called on yet, Marcus? You haven't really. I'm sorry. Is my hand high enough? No, I guess not. I'm sorry. You haven't been picking on me. Well,
Yeah.
we did hear about his pillow.
We did. We heard about your pillow.
That was very important.
Yeah. So tell us, I mean, you've been playing a lot of games, Marcus. Tell us about them.
Yeah, so the first one I actually played a couple weeks ago. It's a game called Forestrike. It is not out. I played a media build of it that was put out by Skeleton Crew. This is their next game, who was the developer of Olija.
Oh, yeah.
If you guys remember that game?
I do.
Olija, came out in 2021. It's a game that I reviewed for us and really liked. I gave it an 8.2 or an 8.5. And it was a side-scrolling action game that had a very kind of pixelated look to it, kind of like later 8-bit, and it was very much focused on animation in a way that something like Another World or like old school Prince of Persia kind of vibe. But it was a really cool game. So this is their next project, and it has that same style, but it's a completely different type of game where it is I think they described it as a tactical kung fu action game where you play as this martial artist who is trying to, I believe, rescue a master or someone, but also trying to liberate a village. And he has this ability called Foresight that allows him to basically play out fights before they happen in his head. So he'll be surrounded by guys, and he can he can kind of like mentally map out, how am I going to approach this? If you've watched the modern Sherlock Holmes movies with Robert Downey Jr., if you remember those sequences where he would play out how a fight would go out in his head?
Yeah.
It's kind of like
A little bit
that.
of like Equalizer too, right? Denzel Washington, doesn't he have a little bit of that vibe sometimes?
If you're a Dragon Ball fan, think of image training in that show. There's numerous examples of this in media, it turns out. But and so the idea of these fights, because it's a 2D game, all the fights play out on the 2D plane, and it's also a roguelike. So you enter these levels on a kind of roguelike map where there's like 2 different branches that you can choose depending on what rewards you're seeking from the end of it. But every level is a separate encounter that pits you against multiple enemies, usually 3, 4, and each enemy has a different type, where you might have a guy that can charge at you and that's his thing, or a guy that has a weapon, or there's one guy who can guard. And you're pretty much trying to figure out the optimal way to win this fight. And so you use your Foresight ability, which you just hit with a button, to sort of enter that mental state. And you can play out the fight as many times as you want until you find sort of I don't know if I want to say the correct solution, because there's no one right answer.
Yeah.
But you're trying to find the optimal solution that works for you. Like, I've solved fights in different ways that resulted in what I would consider the optimal solution, which is not getting hit, because you only have 3 health points, and there are very few opportunities to replenish your health during a run. So ideally, you don't want to take any damage as best to your ability. So you can use Foresight as many times as you want. There were fights where I sat there and I replayed it over and over and over, just trying to nail down where it's like, okay, if this guy comes at me, because you have abilities where you can do like light attacks, you can do a heavy attack, like a kick that can knock 2 health notches instead of 1. But if you miss, then you're vulnerable to getting hit. You can unlock a dodge where if someone swings at you and you hit a button, they'll dodge and they'll go flying behind you, which you can set people up like that, because the enemies can hit each other if you lined them up a certain way. And then you also have a guard where if someone hits you, you'll sort of absorb it and then retaliate. And you can also pick up weapons, which can serve as shields for you. So you can have someone waste an attack if you pick up a table and they punch into it. And then now you can retaliate with something. You can throw weapons. And along the way, as you're completing arenas, you're getting the choice to unlock new perks and abilities. Again, roguelike fashion, where one of my favorites augmented my dodge to where, not only do you dodge, but if you hit down at the same time, you'll throw the guy that attacked you behind you, like kind of like a like a Ryu Street Fighter 2 throw.
Yeah.
They might go flying into whoever's behind you, so you can mess around with that. And so it becomes this very fun exercise of trying to figure out the right way to approach a battle. And then once you think you're ready, you can play the battle for real and try to replicate whatever method you found. And once you succeed, they have this cool kind of replay system where you can scrub through the fight and like fast forward, slow down, and just watch it sort of play out. And then I guess basically study yourself, maybe pick up like, oh, you know what I should have done there? Maybe I should have done this. But at first I wasn't sure what the point of the foresight ability was, because you don't have to use it. You can just go into a fight and just on your first go, just try to get through it. But then as I played more and more of it and the fights got hard and you realize how limited your resources are, it's like you'd be foolish not to take advantage of that, because like the idea is like playing it over and over, getting down a cool method, and then seeing if you can do it again. Because there were times where, and this is where the game could be most frustrating, but like by design, where I got to the end boss and it was like a really tricky thing to figure out because of just the types of enemies that they threw at you, and you're trying to figure out, like, hey, if I hit this guy, I'll be open for the guy behind me, so maybe I should hit him first. And then after a bunch of like attempts, I figured out a way to beat the boss and his goons without getting hit. But I also was coming in with 1 hit point left from the run, so I was ready to go. Like I replayed it 3 times. The way that I figured out was the way to go, and then once it was game time, I blew the last step and lost, and I had to restart the run. And it was so, I think it's even more frustrating than losing normally, because it's like I practiced this, I did it, and then when it was for real, I choked, and now I got to start over again. But it's a cool idea. It reminds me of I don't know, a little bit of Into the Breach, a little bit, not in a way of, you know, it's not like a grid game or anything.
I know what
like
you mean,
that,
though.
but
yeah.
That
just sort of had that quality where you were like, you could figure out the exact right thing to do, and the hit point totals were so small into the breach. You had like to get it exactly right, you know?
You're predicting the enemy movements too. Yeah. Like, if I move here, this guy's gonna do this. So what if I moved over there instead, and see what if that's the key to success. But I think it's cool so far. I like it. I found myself, like I said, obsessively replaying doing the foresight mode over and over for the harder fights. There seems to be a main story there too. Like, you're getting these kind of cutscenes in between pivotal moments with your master, and there's also seems to be multiple runs you can do, or sort of like multiple versions of your character, where I only have 2 unlocked, but you can start a run where dodging is sort of your main defensive technique, but then there's another run with a different master where guarding is your main defensive technique, and there were like multiple locked slots underneath that you could get. But the game, like, on its own is cool, but once you start really stacking in perks and other abilities to augment your starter set, that's where it really starts to sing. I've seen videos of being able to do like crazy jumps and spinning bow staves and doing all sorts of like it seems like once you really have like a good loadout, you can play out some pretty cool like 2D martial arts fight scenes where you're just like flipping all over the place and nobody can touch you.
That sounds awesome. Yeah. Is there like I'm trying to wrap my head around the idea. Is there kind of like a Simon memory quality thing where you gotta like, okay, this is the route, this is the successful route, but just memorizing what you need to do is hard? Yeah, it's because all the enemies will react the same way based on what you do. So if I punch this guy that's in front of me, I know he'll die, but I know doing that, the guy behind me will advance and do something. So I need to account for that. And so like everything plays out the same way as long as you don't change whatever approach you've decided. But then the moment you either slip up or you can miss your timing by a second, and it can unravel everything. We're like, oh, I was late doing step 3, and now this guy's a step closer to me than I wanted, so he's going to get a hit on me. I still get my hit on him, but in the optimal way, I hit him before he hit me, but now the positioning's off. It gets like that minute sometimes.
Okay.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've gotten me excited about that game. I'm gonna go check that out at sometime this week after.
Yeah, so it's not out yet. It comes out next year, and I don't. There wasn't a demo. Like what I got was, I think they were even saying like it's technically not even a preview build. It was literally just like, here's a little slice where we're working on. I think they said the slice I played is not going to be in the full game. So it's more of a proof of concept sort of thing. But I'm excited to see what that looks like when it gets sort of, I guess, closer to release. It's a neat idea.
Yeah, I mean, I mainly just want to go see what it looks like now that you've told me about it, right? Like I think your description is my first time really thinking and hearing about the game. So now I want to like go.
Yeah, there's a trailer out
and
there.
Stuff out there. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, what else have you been playing, Marcus?
I've been playing the hottest game of 2024, guys. I don't know if you heard of it, but it's called Silent Hill 2.
Wow. All right.
Yes. And before people get too excited or confused, this is the original version. This is not the remake that comes out in October. I'm preparing for Silent Hill 2 by playing the original for the very first time. And this is also my first real... actually, I'm going to say it's my first real Silent Hill game. Like, Silent Hill has been one of my biggest gaps in terms of, like, knowledge and franchises. As much as I love horror games, as a kid in the PlayStation era, I made the unconscious decision to be a Resident Evil person and not a Silent Hill person. I feel like there's those series that are like you go with one, and then for whatever reason you never go with the other one, even if it's no like animosity. Like I did that with Ratchet and Clank and Jak and Daxter, where I didn't play Jak and Daxter till way later, but I played all the Ratchet and Clanks when they came out. Like I was like, I guess I'm the Ratchet and Clank guy in this rivalry. And the only Silent Hill games I've ever played until this year was PT, which kind of counts.
Sure, yeah.
And then I beat that free one they released earlier this year, the short message that like you remember that one that they shadow dropped earlier this year? Yeah, like I played all of that. But in terms of like the real meat, I was like, all right, Silent Hill 2, I would like to play the original version before the remake comes out so I can compare, because I'm going to play the remake. And I'm playing the PC version using I don't know if you guys seen this. This is something that Kyle smartened me up to, but there's a fan-made enhanced edition of the PC version that is basically a free mod package that updates the PC version of Silent Hill 2 with like better lighting, modern controls, so you can play it like a normal game and don't have to use the original tank controls. I believe it has the ability to save anytime you want, because the game has traditional save spots. I was like, I assumed that you couldn't save anywhere you want before, because what would be the point? And then just other quality of life improvements like frame rate and stuff. So it runs super well. It took a while to get it going, but that is the way to play it, especially because Silent Hill 2 is unfortunately a very hard game to play because they've never really ported it or remastered it outside of that HD collection from 2012 that a lot of fans don't like.
Sure.
So I'm a good ways through it. I it's weird because now the statute of limitations has reset for like spoilers for the game now that the remake is coming out. I don't know if or maybe I know for you, Alex, I know you're not a big horror guy, but are you a Silent Hill guy, Matt, or are you? Alex?
I'm not a Silent Hill guy, but I know the plot points and all of that because I like to know about horror. It fascinates me. I don't want to experience it necessarily, but I do. Like I read like Wikipedias for like horror movies, and I'm like, dang, I bet that was scary. Yeah.
No, I've played. Gosh, I did play Silent Hill 2. That was so long ago. It feels like a different life, though.
Yeah, 2001.
I mean, that was like before I started my career at Game Informer in 2004. And so like pre-working in games, but I'm glad to. My memory of it is such that I can say that I'm glad that you are playing something that has some updates to it, because that original game, much as it is beloved, doesn't seem like it would be super fun to play now. I mean, some of those like late 90s, early 2000s horror games were real janky in retrospect, right? At the time, they were exciting and scary, but sometimes they were scary because you just couldn't. Oh my gosh, I want to run away and I can't even move correctly, right?
Yeah.
Or I can't see what's happening because the polygons on screen have decided to not cooperate. You know, like there was weird stuff like that. So that's I kind of honestly what I remember most about that game is it was just like kind of a hard game to play, and now I'm sure it would be even more so if I played the original.
Yeah, the modern controls make a huge difference to the point where it almost feels like it trivializes some of the combat because I'm playing on normal, like there's multiple difficulties, but there are times where even when I'm in narrow corridors facing against like the creepy nurses or the weird mannequin looking things. I mean, I play these games pretty conservatively anyway, like survival horror, where it's like I do not fire a bullet unless I absolutely have to.
Yeah.
So it's like they're very easy to just navigate around, which I was like, this has to have been more difficult with the tank controls. And then when I do get into fights, I just use you get like a 2x4 pretty early as your main weapon before you get a gun. And most times I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to beat this with this stick because I can just stand in front of it and they have no response to it. And again, I feel like I was like, would this be easy to do with the original controls? I don't know. But that said, the game still is like effectively creepy at point. Like I think the sound design, which again has been gotten polished for the enhanced edition, but the sound design is still really good. Like there are moments where you walk into a room and you'll hear like just weird whispers, and then it's got like, and I attribute this to the enhanced edition, but it's like got a 3D audio kind of quality to it where it's like, oh, like, where is that coming from? Yeah. And just even the sound effects of some of the enemies when they're just sort of roaming the halls is just gross, and you hear it and you're just like, ooh, I don't like that.
Has it gotten you more excited for the like new version?
Yeah, and maybe in ways that fans might not want to hear, because seeing the story for the first time and hearing the original performances, because I believe that was something that was changed in the HD collection that people were not happy with. Like I think they redid the voices or something, but hearing the original, like James Sunderland, the protagonist, like his performance is like actively bad. And again, I think maybe fans don't want to hear this, but like hearing he's a very dopey character, and I don't know if that's by design or if that's just a product of early 2000s writing, but he's just kind of an idiot a lot of the time. Like he just walks into this town and because the premise of Silent Hill 2 is that he's trying to find his dead wife because he got a message from her even though she's been dead for years. So like he starts most conversations like people are like, oh, what are you here for? And he's just without any sense of tact saying like, hey, I'm just looking for my dead wife, as if that's not a strange thing to say. And then there's one character where he says, you look like my dead wife. And you're just like, oh, why would you say that? Who says that? Like, and there's just other moments where his reactions to things are so just like, it's like the biggest reminder of like, this is a game from 2001. But I'm looking forward to seeing like, or I would not mind if the remake just completely overhauled that stuff. Like, I don't think they should be precious about, we need to word for word keep everything the same or even have the same delivery. Like maybe keep some of that doofusness in the way that they did with Leon in the Resident Evil 4 remake. But other than that, I was like, I would appreciate if he had a more just human reaction to some things. And that goes for some of the other characters, but he's like enemy number one on that. And then even just the, like the combat is very basic. I know some people were, I want to go back and rewatch those trailers that or not everyone, but like the hardcore fans have been kind of down on when they like, oh, this gameplay doesn't look good. And I didn't have context for that. I don't really see how. It looks fine to me. It looks like a modern third-person survival horror game, kind of like over the shoulder style, which to me is fine. And I'm still in that camp of I'd rather have that than what it was. So yeah, I that's been the fun part, is sort of seeing where I land without any of the nostalgia attached to it, just me playing a little bit more objectively and sort of seeing like, oh, I hope that they smooth this over in the remake, or this could be better. But like the general vibes are still very strong, and I'm at a point in the story now, like I'm a few hours in, where I'm invested in seeing what's happening. Like it's a pretty cool and interesting mystery so far. So yeah, it has definitely. I was already excited for the remake just because it was an easy way to play a modern version of a game that is very inaccessible. But now it's like that. Plus, I was like, I would like to see how you guys tackle this. Bloober Team, not the greatest track record, at least in my opinion. Like they make okay games, but it's like I understand why people are cautious about them being at the helm of this. But at least from what I remember of seeing in the remake, to me it looks fine. So we'll see. But also it's cool to finally see Pyramid Head and have like actual or maybe more context to what a Pyramid Head is. Like I would see that character and go, he looks cool, but I don't know what his deal is. And granted, I still don't know what his deal is, but I've run into him a few times. So I'm like, oh, okay, you're the big scary thing that people are afraid of. This is what this is like, I guess.
My introduction to him was Dead by Daylight.
Yeah,
he
sure.
was in there.
I think there's a lot of interesting conversation to be had about the challenges the developers have when approaching a remake for something this old, right? There's a lot of different approaches you can take, and the degree to which you want to be faithful to something that, if you're someone like you, Marcus, right? Like you don't have an affection, correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't sound like you have an affection for the original Silent Hill 2, right? You just are playing it because you know that it's fondly remembered and that there are people who really love it, and you're curious about how it's going to like compare to this new experience, right? So for someone like you, the people who are making the game are probably mostly interested in just like, how can we make this good now, right? But there's also this need to be aware of the fact that at least some of your audience who's going to be compelled to pick up the game and play it are the people who do have nostalgia and fondness for the original and don't want it to be too different, right? So that's a hard balance to hit, I think. Yeah. And it emerges, I think, often as the most interesting thing you can be looking to talk about, right? About one of these games, whether it's something like this or what, Square did with Final Fantasy VII or is doing with Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
All those games are like, these are old games now. Trying to just redo them and not make changes to script or the way combat feels or something like that. Even though there's some people out there who are like, that's what I want. That's not what probably would be best.
Yeah, or maybe you haven't played in a while and you think that's what you want.
You think it. Yeah. Totally.
And then you go back and go, ooh.
There's those rose tinted glasses that we all have for games we played, especially when we were young, where you think it looked great. It didn't look as great as you think it did. I promise it didn't. Whatever it is, it didn't look as great. Like there's those games that you're in your head, you've updated them, you've given them the HD update in your head, but that hasn't happened to them, and you go back and you put them on and it's like this is dicey.
Like, I could see the individual polygons in this fog. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
It looks like a snowstorm. I will say though, one of the presentational stuff in Silent Hill 2, definitely I could see why it was so beloved. Like there's some stuff that I see is like, this seems ahead of its time, especially the cinematography. Like this game has a lot of really cool camera angles when you're switching perspectives. Like you walk into a room and they'll put the camera either up close and then like tilted in like James's face or behind him. And they just have a very like interesting way of framing things that is stylish, but without generally getting in the way of gameplay. Like, oh, this is obscuring something. So I think that stuff, I was like, oh, I hope they keep that sort of like style to it. 'Cause I think it does lend itself to sort of the idea that you and James are slowly losing your mind in this town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, I hope they keep that stuff. But I'm excited to see the rest of it. Apparently, it's not as long as I thought it would be. I think I looked it up and I was like, oh, it's like 8 hours to get through. Also, the puzzle solving still pretty good generally, and not as for a survival horror game from that era. I was expecting to be more obtuse than it actually is.
Sure.
So I've been pleasantly surprised where there's stuff that I've had to think about, but it's always they leave breadcrumbs or nothing has been too just like, I can't figure that out. It's like you got to think about it, but it makes sense once you come to the solution. So again, kudos to Konami from over 20 years ago. You did it.
Congrats. Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, take us home, Marcus. I know you got one more game you want to talk about before we wrap up the show. And it's one that I've been very curious about. It's a puzzle game called Arranger.
Yeah. We talked about this last week. Charles played a bit of it. I've played the first couple hours of it. If you're not familiar with it, it is the top-down adventure game where you play as a character who has the ability to slide the world itself. Like, the world itself is one giant sliding puzzle, basically. And what's fun about it is that everyone is aware that you have this power. Like, it's not just a gameplay thing. Like, it is a narrative, like, in-universe thing that people think it's weird that you can do this and maybe don't like it because they're being moved around against their will sometimes. But it's fun. I was worried about this game only because I feel like slide puzzles in every game, they're a recurring element in a lot of games, and I don't think I've ever decided if I like them or not. I feel like it's a very game-to-game basis. Like, sometimes I'll encounter one and it's like, oh, this is cool. And then other times it's the most frustrating thing ever. And I don't want to do this, but I have to. And I was worried about, like, the game being just that. How complicated or annoying can this be when literally everything you do is a slide puzzle? And at least so far, it has been very fun and manageable. I think they have designed the world in a way to where it never gets more complicated than it needs to be, or that you can make it yourself. Every route, like, you're going through a big kind of, like, again, like, top-down Zelda is maybe the best comparison I can give it for just the viewpoint, but every route or every lane that you go to is almost like a slide puzzle in itself, where you have to figure out how to slide yourself up a road and then how to go left, and then every direction change is sort of its own very small riddle. But it's fun just figuring out how to quickly navigate those spaces. Like, you can do the Pac-Man thing of, oh, if I go to the edge of a road, I will appear on the other side of it. So instead of manually shifting my way up, I should just go down and then pop up the other side and then keep going. So I've been doing that everywhere I've been going, and it's expedited my travels, as well as the puzzles where you need to bring other people or other objects with you. And then that's where it gets puzzling, when you're having to account for an object that you have to figure out, how do I get this from here to there? And sometimes there's barriers that can't be shifted, which there's an in-universe explanation for things that are static. Like, I think it's like the evil force, or it's like an entity that I think is called static, or it's got this weird sort of like multicolored glow, and that's how you know that it can't be moved. But I like it's fun. Like, I think it's well designed. The boss, I've done one major boss fight so far, and that was a fun fight because it was pretty much just it was kind of like if you've played enough old school Zelda games, the big worm where you have to attack the tail, it was like a cool variation of that, because you're trying to shift the floors to where you guide the spiked tail to hit the head of the snake.
Sure, yeah.
In this sort of obstacle course where you can't move everything in it, so you have to figure out how to guide the tail and line things up to where it collides with the head. I thought that was a pretty fun fight. And I've also liked the writing. Like, the writing has been pretty charming. There's been some very fun characters. Again, it's fun to see their reactions to Gemma, who's the protagonist, who has this interesting story where she was an orphan who grew up in this town where it seems like things like were generally static and you're the only person that can move stuff, and she decides to leave to see the world for the first time and try to learn about her upbringing and why she has this power and why some people are afraid of her. The soundtrack is also very good. It's got a very Bastion vibe to it, just a lot of acoustic guitar.
Yeah, I love that.
That reminds me a lot of like the main theme of Bastion that I've really liked, and it's got a very nice, colorful art direction. But it's very fun, and it's also something you can play in kind of short chunks. I'm playing it on Switch. I believe it's only on Switch and PC, but that's been a very fun sort of before bed game where you can almost treat just the act of reaching a new area as like a puzzle or a few puzzles, and you're like, okay, I made it to that house. Okay, I'm done. Because I already had to, I had to do quite a bit of thinking just to get to this house, and then you feel satisfied. But it's cool. I like it so far. I want to get through it.
Yeah, that's awesome. It sounds super interesting. Also, the bedtime game. I need a bedtime game because my problem with bedtime games, Paper Mario and Thousand Year Door has been my bedtime game, and it's too much to try to play that game before bed because I always get really tired very quickly and I don't get very far. Whereas like having a game like a Ranger where I can do I like that idea of let me get to that house and then I'll go to sleep. That's perfect.
Yeah. And also, I would say moving the tiles feels good. It's got a good tile slidey feel to it, which I think is very important for something like this. You're like, there's a nice tactile feel to it.
Love it. What were you gonna say, Matt?
I was just gonna ask you if when you finish playing, you've got a good pillow to lay on.
I do. I actually have a very great pillow. I asked for a pillow for Christmas, actually.
Oh, nice.
And
did you not get it?
I did. And,
okay.
And it's amazing. I don't think it's not meant to be a normal pillow, but I felt it at Target, and it was like an $80 pillow, and I was like, this feels incredible.
Wait. What is it? What do you mean it's not meant to be a normal pillow?
It's right here. Let me get it. Hold on.
I was like, what constitutes a normal pillow besides did you buy like a body pillow or? Okay, that's a pillow. Okay. I mean, it looks like a couch cushion.
It's not
like a bed pillow.
Yeah,
right?
but it's so comfortable. I love it so much. It's the softest pillow I've ever owned. And yeah. So I haven't taken the tack off either.
You're just bragging, trying to show off. Hey, this was $80.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
I'm sleeping on money, baby.
We've gone full circle.
We have,
guys.
That's what you do in the business of podcasting.
That's professional podcasting right there.
Yeah,
that's what we're doing.
Well, thank you both for joining me today on this episode. Thank you all out there for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please consider supporting Game Informer through a print magazine subscription. Of course, that does get you digital access, but it's $19.91 for 10 issues a year. If you want to sign up for 2 years, it's $34.99 for 20 issues across 2 years. It's the best way to support us. You can grab your own copies over at subscribe.gameinformer.com. If you aren't in the US and you want to support us, leaving a podcast review on your preferred podcast platform is great. Sharing us with a friend, getting the word out about Game Informer. That's always very helpful for us. And we appreciate everybody who's done so. If you want to follow the crew this week, follow Matt Miller on GameInformer.com. Follow his work there. You can follow Marcus at MarcusStewart7 on social media. You can follow me at It's Van Aken. Kyle's not here this week, but you can follow him at Kyle M. Hilliard. He'll be back next week. And yeah, thanks everyone for sticking with us. We are at the end of July. We're about to enter the onslaught of game releases.
Coming for you.
It's coming.
Madden's the groundhog, right?
Exactly.
When Madden comes out, that's when the games happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we'll be here talking about all of them. So if you're new here, be sure to subscribe to the podcast, follow us. We appreciate all of that. We'll talk to you next Thursday, everybody. Have a great week. Bye.